It started on a quiet evening that looked normal from the outside but felt different the moment he walked through the door. The house was the same as always, with soft yellow lights in the hallway. A faint smell of cooked dinner still in the air, and the sound of a clock ticking in the living room, but something inside it no longer felt stable. She was in the kitchen folding laundry, moving slowly. Her mind half on the task and half on the routine of the day. She had done this same work for years without thinking much about it, turning simple household moments into comfort, into rhythm, into something that made life feel steady. But that evening, the rhythm broke. He didn't greet her the way he usually did. There was no casual comment about the weather, no small question about dinner, no tired joke from work. Instead, he stood near the doorway between the kitchen and living room, not fully entering, as if he was unsure whether he belonged in that space anymore. She noticed it but didn't say anything at first. People have off days, she told herself. Everyone gets quiet sometimes. But the silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It had weight. It stretched. It made the air feel tighter. She continued folding clothes, slower now. Her attention slowly shifting toward him even before he spoke. When he finally did, his voice was calm, like he had rehearsed the words somewhere far away before bringing them home. He said he needed a break, not a pause in a conversation. Not a moment of space after an argument, a break from them, from their marriage, from the life they had built together over years that included shared routines, shared bills, shared memories, and shared silence that had once felt safe. The words didn't come with anger or blame. That was what made them worse. There was no fight leading up to it, no obvious explosion that could explain it. It was delivered like a decision already made, not a discussion waiting to happen for a second. She didn't react. Her hand stayed on the fabric she was folding, gripping it slightly tighter than before, as if holding it could hold everything else in place. Her mind tried to catch up with what she had heard, trying to translate it into something less sharp, something less final, but there was no softer version of what he had said. A break meant distance, distance meant change, change meant uncertainty. She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't noticed before. Not anger, not sadness, something more distant. Like he had already stepped halfway out of the relationship and was just informing her of the rest. She asked him quietly if he meant what he said, hoping for hesitation, for a correction, for a laugh that would turn it into a misunderstanding. But he nodded, once simple, firm. That nod did more damage than the words themselves. It removed doubt. It made it real. The room suddenly felt smaller, even though nothing had physically changed. She stood there holding a piece of clothing that now felt useless in her hands, like the normal world had stopped matching the emotional one. She thought about asking questions, about demanding reasons, about pulling out every moment from the past few months to find where things had gone wrong, but her voice didn't come easily. Instead, there was silence again, heavy, uncomfortable silence that filled every corner of the kitchen. He broke it by saying he didn't want fights, didn't want drama, just space to think. That word, space, echoed in her mind. Space meant distance. Distance meant separation. Separation meant she was already losing him even while he stood in front of her. She felt something inside her tighten, but she didn't let it show. Years of marriage had taught her how to hold herself together in moments that didn't feel stable. So she nodded slowly, not because she understood, but because she didn't know what else to do in that moment without breaking the fragile thread that was still holding the conversation together. That was when she said yes, not with confidence, not with agreement, but with shock wrapped in silence. Yes, if that is what you need, she said, her voice softer than she expected. He seemed relieved, which confused her more than anything else. Relief meant he had feared resistance, or worse, emotional collapse, but neither came. She had simply accepted it in a way that made it feel final. After that, he moved into the guest room that same night. There was no dramatic packing scene, no shouting, no tears thrown across the room, just quiet movement. the sound of a suitcase rolling across the floor, the closing of a door that suddenly felt like a boundary. She stood in the hallway after he disappeared behind that door, listening to the lock click softly. That sound stayed in her mind longer than anything else. The house didn't feel different because something loud happened. It felt different because something important stopped continuing. She went back to the kitchen, still holding the same piece of laundry, now completely forgotten in her hand. She placed it down slowly and sat at the table, staring at nothing. In particular, her thoughts didn't form into clear sentences at first. They came in fragments. When did this start? How long has he felt this way? Why didn't she see it sooner? She began replaying recent days in her mind, searching for signs. She had missed late nights when he stayed up longer than usual, moments when he checked his phone quickly and turned it away, conversations that ended faster than they used to, small changes she had ignored because life had felt stable on the surface. Now those small details began connecting in ways that felt uncomfortable, not enough to prove anything, but enough to create doubt, the kind of doubt that grows when trust starts to crack without warning. She realized that he had been pulling away slowly, not suddenly. Distance doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it builds quietly in routines, in habits, in silence that stretches just a little too long. She looked toward the guest room door again. It was closed now. But it felt like a symbol of something much larger. Not just a room, not just a night apart, but the beginning of something she could not yet define. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar quiet of a home that no longer felt shared in the same way. Every sound felt sharper, every minute felt longer. And in that silence, one thought kept returning, again and again. Without stopping, something had already changed between them long before he said the words out loud, and she had only just been told the truth.